What have you learned from the wiretaps and the surveillance that you've been able to do of the mob figures?
Well, the court-authorized electronic surveillance, wiretaps and bugs, permit us to move up to a level that we probably wouldn't be at if it weren't for the ability to do that. If you just think of it this way, most bosses of organized crime families deal only with people that they have dealt with for 30, 40, and 50 years. They are not going to deal with an informant, with an undercover agent, with somebody new. They just don't deal with anybody new for fear that, that someone will turn them in. So that at the highest levels, it becomes almost impossible to penetrate by using undercover techniques, witnesses, the kinds of things that would traditionally be the way in which you would make a criminal case. Since we've had Title III, which is the law that permits court-authorized wiretapping and bugging, when an informant or a witness can take us to a certain level, let's say the capo level or even the consigliere level, something close to the boss, and we can't go any further than that, we can go to court, assuming we have probable cause to believe that a phone is going to be used or a place is going to be used to discuss criminal activities. We can get a court order and we can use electronic surveillance in order to pick up the conversations.
What kinds of things have you learned? I mean, that they just sit around and say, okay, you take this and I take that, and then we'll get him over here and he'll run the pizza businesses. What kinds of things have you picked up?
What you learn is that it is run very much like a business, that even though they may be talking about murder, authorizing a murder or discussing substantial shipments of heroin, they talk and deal with it as businessmen would. And if you were just observing that conversation from the outside, if you and I were looking at it and not listening to it, we'd have no idea that we were looking at three or four human beings plotting the murder of another human being, or 3 or 4 human beings plotting the importation of $7 or $8 million worth of drugs. And the use of Title III has made a very, very big difference in our being able to get up to the upper levels of organized crime on the scale that we've now been able to do it. We might have made 1 or 2 of these cases, but we never would have made all of them had it not been for Title III.
This conversation makes me think of a famous line from a Washington local anchor who said, "The end of an era is over." Are we seeing the end of an era here?
Well, I think the end of an era is approaching, at least. I believe that at least insofar as the Mafia or La Cosa Nostra is concerned, if we can continue this pressure for a couple more years, we will see the end of it as we know it. In other words, as the powerful international organization that it is, the coherent, powerful international organization that it has been for the last 20, 30, or 40 years. Now, some of that, I think, rightfully is because of the law enforcement pressure, the Justice Department, the FBI, the U.S. attorneys, the local police. But a lot of that also is demographics. They are not able to recruit in the way in which they were able to recruit before. They can't find the people in those neighborhoods that will join them. The people they would have looked to replenish the ranks are now in colleges, law schools, medical schools, in record numbers. So that I'm really very hopeful that we can deal a very, very serious blow to them, 1, because of the law enforcement pressure, and 2, because right now demographics is operating on our side.
And I suppose when they see something like the Pizza Connection case, they realize that a new branch of the Mafia is going to have trouble getting a foothold, too.
Yes, absolutely right. I think we're demonstrating something else that's very, very valuable, because the law enforcement, the courts, can teach as well as just punish. What I think we are teaching them is that they are not invincible. For many, many years, it was just popularly said that all of these people, all of these organized crime people, the heads of families, were invincible. Even if they'd be caught occasionally, it would be on minor charges. They wouldn't go to prison for very long. And some of them would go through whole careers, never being discovered, never being caught. Joe Bonanno, in his book, proudly boasts that he had never been identified and never been arrested for decades and decades and decades, even though he ran an organized crime family. That has an impact on communities. That has an impact on people who might consider joining them. It seems like for an amoral, immoral person, this seems like a pretty safe way to live. I think we're changing that lesson. They are no longer invincible. Now, in record numbers, in large numbers, probably more than ever before, heads of families are either in prison or under indictment. That proves they are not invincible. They can be caught and they can be punished. And I think that is a very, very important lesson to drive people who might be considering joining up with them out of it. And also to give courage to witnesses to come forward. Because they were invincible in the past, it was very difficult to get people to come and testify, even people who were willing to take some risk, because they would say, what does it matter? You're not going to be able to make a case against them, you're not going to be able to convict them, they're not going to go to prison for any period of time. I can remember when I was an assistant dealing with people like that, sitting across the table from them, trying to convince them to cooperate. It is now somewhat easier to do that because a lot of people see the house beginning to crumble. And they don't feel that these people are invincible. They're being shown up for exactly what they are, gangsters.
Thank you.
Is there a commission? Do we know there's a commission, and what does it mean that we know so much about? How much do we know about these people without giving away everything you know, which I'm sure you won't anyway?
Well, I don't know how much I can say about that. That's the